I thought my life was nothing but endless work and sleepless nights, fighting to raise my little girl alone. Then she walked in, an infamous billionaire CEO feared by everyone. Cold, ruthless, untouchable. But behind her iron walls hid a truth that would shatter everything I believe about love, sacrifice, and second chances. Do you believe people can change when love finally reaches them? If yes, like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. I dragged my boots across the gravel as I left the site, every muscle in my body screaming for rest. 12 hours of lifting, hammering, and swallowing dust. It clung to my skin, to my lungs, to my soul. My co-workers joked about beers and late-night cards, but me? I had one place to go, one little face waiting at the window. The night air hit cold against my sweat, and I muttered under my breath, just a few more paychecks, just enough to cover next month. I always told myself that, but the numbers never added up. Hey, you here? One of the guys whispered as he lit a cigarette. New boss coming tomorrow. Some billionaire lady. Ruthless. Fired a whole team last week just 'cause they were slow. Another one snorted. Guess we're screwed. I didn't answer. I couldn't. If I thought too hard about losing this job, I'd choke. Instead, I shoved my hands deeper into my pockets and walked faster toward the bus stop. By the time I reached home, my legs were jelly. The apartment was small, 2 rooms that smelled faintly of soap and boiled rice. But the moment I opened the door, light spilled out, and so did her voice. Daddy. I bent just in time for a tiny body to slam into me. My daughter's arms wrapped around my waist. Her hair smelled like strawberries. Cheap shampoo, but heavenly to me. Hey, pumpkin. I whispered, forcing my voice to sound lighter than I felt. Why aren't you in bed? I made something for you. She grinned, missing one front tooth, and held up a wrinkled piece of paper. I crouched down. The drawing was messy. Crayon scribbled into a man with a big smile, holding hands with a little girl under a sun that had a face. At the top, in shaky letters, she had written, You're my hero, Daddy. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My throat tightened, and I blinked hard so she wouldn't see. Did you like it? She asked, suddenly shy. Like it? I laughed softly, my voice cracking. Sweetheart, this is the best thing anyone's ever given me. I pulled her close and kissed her hair. You know, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear boots covered in mud. She giggled, her little shoulders shaking. You're silly. Yeah, I admit it. Silly and tired. Her face grew serious. Did you eat Daddy? I lied like I always did. At work, pumpkin. Don't worry about me. But my stomach growled at the same time, and she frowned. You always say that. I tickled her until she squealed. And you always catch me, huh? Later, after I tucked her under the thin blanket, I sat at the edge of her bed, watching her eyelids flutter. She whispered half asleep. Don't work too hard, Daddy. I need you more than the world does. Those words stabbed and healed me all at once. I whispered back, I'm not going anywhere, ever. She drifted off, but I stayed. My hands rubbed my face, rough with dirt and exhaustion. In the dark, the truth spilled into my mind. Truth I never told her. Bills piled higher than I could climb. Rent due. Her school trip coming up. And tomorrow, this billionaire CEO was coming. Someone who could end my job with a snap of her fingers. What if she saw me as weak? What if she cleared us all out, left me begging for scraps? I thought of the stories. She fired men twice my size, with more skills than me. No warnings. Just gone. I pressed my palms together, leaning my forehead against them. God, just give me one more day. Just let me keep this job long enough to buy her shoes that don't have holes. The fridge hummed in the kitchen, the only other sound in the room. I thought about how empty it was. Some eggs, half a carton of milk, noodles. But on the fridge door, her drawings covered every inch like wallpaper. Smiling suns, crooked houses, a stick-figured dad always holding her hand. My eyes lingered on the newest one. You're my hero, Daddy. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Heroes didn't cry, right? Heroes didn't collapse on the kitchen floor after midnight. whispering promises they weren't sure they could keep. Still, she believed in me. And maybe that was enough. I stood, wiped my face, and whispered into a quiet apartment. Tomorrow, no matter what she throws at me, I'll stand. For her. I switched off the light, the drawing still glowing faintly in the moonlight from the window. I didn't know then that the woman everyone feared, the one who could crush men like me with a word, was about to step into my life. And somehow, everything was going to change. I barely slept. My daughter's breathing was soft beside me on the mattress we shared, but my head spun with thoughts of the new boss, the so-called Ice Queen, the billionaire who didn't flinch at firing entire crews. By morning, my stomach was a knot. At breakfast, I forced a smile as I handed her a slice of bread with jam. Eat slow, pumpkin. Make it last. She frowned. Aren't you having any? I'll eat at work. Another lie. Her little eyes narrowed, too smart for her age. You always say that. I kissed her forehead before she could argue more. Wish me luck today. She raised her tiny fist like a superhero. You got this, Daddy. Those words carried me all the way to the site. The place was buzzing. Guys whispering corners. Tools clanged nervously. Even the foreman looked pale. Then, the sound of heels on concrete silenced everything. She walked in like she owned not just the site, but the air itself. Tall, hair sharp as her eyes, suit black as midnight. She didn't smile. She didn't even blink. Her gaze swept over us like we were weeds in her garden. One man coughed nervously. She snapped her fingers. You. Out. He froze. And me. You're slow. I don't keep slow. Just like that. He grabbed his helmet and left, shoulders hunched. She turned again, scanning. Another man whispered under his breath. She caught it. Out. Gone. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stand straighter. My heart hammered, but I couldn't show it. This job was my last rope. Then her eyes landed on me. Cold, piercing, like she wanted to peel back my skin and see what I was made of. You, she said. My throat dried. Yes, ma'am. Why are you still standing here? The words shot through me. Everyone stared, waiting for me to break. I swallowed hard, because I need this job. Something flickered across her face. Annoyance? Amusement? I couldn't tell. You think I care what you need? She asked, voice sharp. No, I admitted, but I care, and I'm not walking away. A silence stretched. My pulse pounded so loud I thought everyone could hear. Then, to everyone's shock, she smirked. Not a kind smirk, a dangerous one. You're different. Her heels clicked as she walked past me. Fine, stay, but let's see how long you last. The rest of the day, she worked us like machines. Orders barked, deadlines slashed. Men cursed under their breath. But none dared rebel. My shoulders burned, my hands split open under my gloves. But I pushed harder. Every nail I hammered, every beam I lifted, I whispered in my head. For her, for my little girl. At lunch, most of the crew scattered like cockroaches. I sat alone with my water bottle, staring at my hands. They shook. Her shadow fell across me. You don't eat? She asked flatly. I looked up, startled. She stood over me, arms crossed. I eat, I said quickly. Then why aren't you? I hesitated. The truth slipped out before I could stop it. Because food costs money I don't have. Her eyes narrowed, studying me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. So you break yourself for this paycheck? Yes. I met her stare. Because a little girl depends on me. Quitting isn't in my blood. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Instead, she turned and walked away without a word. By the end of the shift, most men looked ready to collapse. Some swore they wouldn't return tomorrow. But me? I couldn't afford that choice. As I left the site, I overheard whispers. She's testing him. Bet he won't last a week. Maybe they were right. But as I trudged home, thinking of my daughter waiting at the window, I clenched my teeth. I'd last a lifetime if I had to. When I opened the door, she ran into my arms again. Daddy, you came back. I laughed weakly. Of course I did. Always will. But deep down, her words cut me. Because tomorrow, I knew the real test was just beginning. The next morning, my body felt like lead, but quitting wasn't an option. My daughter waved at me from the window as I walked to the bus stop. That image, her tiny hand pressed against the glass, was the only strength I carried onto the site. When I arrived, I already knew something was different. The air was heavy, like a storm waiting to break. And then I saw her, standing in the middle of the site with a clipboard, watching us like hawks circle prey. "Today," she said, voice slicing through the air, "we find out who deserves to stay." Men groaned quietly. One cursed under his breath. She didn't even glance at him. She looked straight at me. "You," she ordered, "start with the steel beams." Alone. My gut tightened. Those beams weren't for one man. They were for three. "Yes, ma'am," I said anyway. I worked until my hands trembled. Sweat blinded me, salt stinging my eyes. My gloves tore. Skin split open underneath. Every muscle screamed. At one point, I nearly dropped a beam, my knees buckling. Laughter rippled nearby. "She's going to kill him. He won't last another hour." But I heard another voice louder. "My daughters, you got this, Daddy." I gritted my teeth and forced the beam into place. One by one, bleeding, shaking, but standing. At lunch, I collapsed onto a crate, chest heaving. My water bottle was empty. My hands throbbed like fire. She appeared again, standing too close, shadows falling over me. "You should quit," she said coldly. I looked up, breath ragged. Not an option. Her eyes narrowed. Every man has a breaking point. "Maybe," I said, wiping sweat from my forehead, "but mine isn't today." For the first time, her expression shifted. Not anger, not boredom. Something like curiosity. She crouched slightly, meeting my eyes. "Why fight this hard? For money?" I shook my head. "For her." Her. My daughter. She's 7. She still believes heroes exist. My throat tightened. I can't let her be wrong. Her gaze lingered, sharp but searching. Then she straightened and walked away without another word. The rest of the day, the tasks only got harder. Clearing rubble, climbing scaffolds, hauling sacks meant for 2 men. I thought my bones would snap. But each time I faltered, I'd picture her smile waiting at home. As the sun dipped, the crew scattered like leaves in the wind. I was the last one still working. When I finally set down the last sack, my body swayed like it would topple. She stood there again, silent, watching. "Done." I panted. "You should be broken," she said. "Maybe I am," I admitted, forcing a smile, "but I'll still show up tomorrow." A strange silence stretched between us. Then she nodded once, barely noticeable, and turned away. On the bus ride home, every joint screamed. My hands were raw, blood seeping through the cloth I'd wrapped them in. But when I stepped into the apartment, my daughter jumped into my arms like I wasn't falling apart. "Daddy, did you win today?" I chuckled weakly. "I survived." "That means you won," she declared, pressing a cookie into my palm. "This is for heroes only." I took a bite, crumbs sticking in my cracked lips, and whispered, "Then I'll never stop winning for you." She didn't know my hand shook, so badly the cookie almost slipped. She didn't know I'd been pushed to the edge of breaking, but she knew I was still standing. And tomorrow I'd stand again. By the time I stumbled off the bus, night had swallowed the streets. My boots dragged, my back screamed, and my palms were raw beneath the bandages I'd wrapped. But as soon as I reached my door, all of it faded, because I knew she'd be waiting. "Daddy." My daughter ran into my arms, hugging me so tight my ribs ached. "Hey, pumpkin," I whispered into her hair. "You still awake? I wanted to draw with you." She held up crayons in her little fist. My heart squeezed. I wanted nothing more than to collapse, but I sat down at the table with her. "All right, 10 minutes." We scribbled suns and stick figures until her eyelids drooped. I carried her to bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Good night, hero." Her sleepy voice mumbled back, "You're my hero, Daddy." Those words stitched me back together. Hours later, the apartment was silent, save for the hum of the fridge. I sat at the table, nursing my aching hands. That's when it came. 3 sharp knocks. I froze. It was nearly midnight. Nobody visited us. Slowly, I stood and opened the door. And there she was, the billionaire, my boss, standing in the rain, her perfect hair plastered to her face, her mascara smudged, her eyes hollow. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. "Ma'am," I stammered. "Can I come in?" Her voice cracked, fragile, nothing like the ice I'd heard at work. I hesitated. This world of hers and mine weren't meant to cross. But the storm outside pushed her shoulders down, and something in me couldn't shut the door. "Yeah," I whispered, stepping aside. She walked in, dripping water onto our worn carpet. She looked around slowly. Our tiny kitchen, the cracked tiles, the fridge covered in drawings. Her gaze froze on one that said, "You're my hero, Daddy." Her lips trembled. "Tea?" I asked awkwardly. She nodded. I boiled water, hands fumbling. The silence was thick, broken only by the kettle. When I set the cup in front of her, she held it but didn't drink. Finally, I asked, "Why are you here?" Her eyes lifted to mine, red and raw. "Because I couldn't go anywhere else." I frowned. "You could go anywhere. Mansions, hotels. Why here?" Her laugh was bitter. "Because everywhere else feels empty. Here it doesn't." I didn't know what to say. After a long pause, she whispered, "You think I don't notice, don't you? The way you work, the way you bleed, and still stand. I just do what I have to." Her eyes softened just for a moment. I used to know someone like that. My father. He worked himself into ground. For me, I leaned forward, surprised. "Your father?" She nodded. "We had nothing, not even shoes some winters. He built everything from nothing. And when he died, I promised I'd never be weak again. Never need anyone. Never let anyone hurt me." Her hand shook around the teacup. But tonight, I felt like that little girl again. Lost. I swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing into me. "You don't have to carry it alone." She looked at me like no one had ever said that to her before. Her lip quivered, but she bit it hard, holding herself together. A soft voice broke the moment. "Daddy," my daughter stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Pumpkin, go back to sleep," I whispered. But she spotted the woman at the table and tilted her head. "Who's she?" The CO straightened quickly, wiping at her face. "I'm just a friend." My daughter patted over, climbed into my lap, and stared at her. Then, with the blunt honesty only children have, she asked, "Why are you sad?" The CEO froze. No one dared question her at work. No one dared look at her this closely. Her lips parted, but no words came. Finally, she whispered, "Because I forgot what happy feels like." My daughter blinked. Then she slid off my lap, walked to the fridge, and grabbed one of her drawings, a crooked heart with 3 stick figures holding hands. She held it out. "This makes me happy. You can have it." The CEO's hand trembled as she took it. For a second, her eyes flooded with tears. She blinked them away, but I saw them. "Thank you," she whispered hoarsely. My daughter yawned. "Now you won't be sad anymore." She toddled back toward her room. The CEO stared at the drawing in her lap, like it was worth more than all her billions. Her fingers traced the crooked lines, as if afraid it would vanish. When my daughter's door shut, silence returned. She looked at me, eyes raw. Why would she give this to me? Because kids don't care about power. They care about hearts. Her voice cracked. "I don't deserve it." I leaned forward, my own voice breaking. "Neither do I, half the time. But she still calls me her hero." We sat in silence, 2 broken worlds colliding in a tiny kitchen at midnight. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know why I came here, but thank you for letting me in." I met her gaze and said quietly, "Maybe you came because you needed to." The rain outside softened, but inside, something heavier shifted. The storm had passed by morning, but her presence lingered in our home like a secret. When I woke, The chair at the kitchen table was empty, the teacup still half full. She had slipped out before dawn, leaving nothing behind except my daughter's drawing clutched in her absence. For a while, I thought maybe I'd imagined it all. But at the sight, she was there again, mask back on, voice sharp, eyes colder than steel. Yet every time she looked my way, I swore I saw a flicker of something softer. That evening, as I was patching a crack in our wall with plaster, there was another knock. My chest tightened. I opened the door to find her again, though this time she wasn't soaked or broken, just tired. My daughter squealed, "Miss Bossy." I nearly choked. Pumpkin. But instead of snapping, the CEO actually laughed, a quiet, startled laugh that looked like it surprised her too. "May I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She sat at the table, watching as my daughter colored. After a while, she leaned closer and whispered, "She reminds me of me." I raised a brow. "You?" The ruthless billionaire. Her eyes darkened. "Once, I was just a girl with crayons, too." I stayed silent, waiting. For the first time, she didn't guard her words. "I grew up in a town smaller than this apartment. My mother left when I was 6. My father, he tried. God, he tried. Worked double shifts, broke his body just to keep me fed. Some nights, he'd come home with nothing but stale bread, and he'd tell me he wasn't hungry." Her voice shook, and I realized she was telling me the kind of story she probably hadn't shared with anyone in years. "One winter," she whispered, staring at the table, "the landlord threw us out. Snow was falling, and we had nowhere to go. I remember crying that I couldn't feel my feet. My father wrapped me in his coat and told me not to cry, that one day I'd be stronger than all of them. He said pain was only fire making steel." My throat tightened. "And you believed him?" "I had to." She blinked fast, her jaw tight. "But then he died. Heart attack. Overwork, they said. I swore no one would ever see me weak again. I built walls, sharper and higher than anyone could climb. And it worked. I became untouchable." Her hand trembled slightly on the table. "But sometimes I wonder if I lost myself behind those walls." I wanted to say something, but words felt heavy. Finally, I admitted softly, "I see him in you, the way you push, the way you fight. But I also see the little girl. She's still there." Her eyes flashed with something raw, almost fear. "Do you think less of me for telling you this?" I shook my head. "No. If anything, I think more, because it takes more strength to open up than to shut everyone out." She stared at me, lips parting like she wanted to argue. But then my daughter clambered onto her lap without warning. "Do you want to color with me?" my little girl asked. The CEO stiffened, caught off guard. "I don't know how." My daughter shoved a crayon into her hand. "Easy. Just draw a heart." Slowly, awkwardly, she scribbled one. Crooked, shaky. But when my daughter squealed, "Perfect," I saw something break inside her. Not in a bad way. In a healing way. Later, when my daughter was asleep, we sat in the quiet again. "You risk too much letting me here," she said softly. "Maybe," I admitted, "but you keep coming back." Her eyes met mine, sharp but vulnerable. "Because here, I don't feel like a monster." The words punched the air out of me. I leaned forward, voice low. "You're not a monster. You're someone who had to survive." For a long time, we just sat there. Her mask had cracked, and I glimpsed the scarred soul behind it. And in her story, I saw my own reflection. When she finally stood to leave, she paused at the door. "Thank you for listening." "Anytime," I said quietly. And when she walked out into the night, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't just my boss anymore. She was someone I couldn't turn away from. The next day, the air at the site felt strange, heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I tried to shake it off. Bills were piling up. My little girl needed school shoes, and I didn't have the luxury of bad feelings. But when I saw her, our CEO, walking perimeter with that sharp gaze, my chest tightened. After last night, after her story, I couldn't see her as just the boss anymore. She was human, fragile in ways she'd never admit. and that scared me. By noon, the accident happened. A spark, a scream, then the smell of smoke. Fire, someone shouted. Chaos erupted. Men dropped their tools, rushing for the exits. Black smoke poured from the scaffolding where welding sparks had caught dry wood. In seconds, the whole structure was burning. Everyone out! Out! The foreman bellowed. I grabbed my jacket over my mouth and searched for my crew, but in the confusion, I saw her, up on the half-built stairwell, barking orders, refusing to leave. My heart slammed. What the hell is she doing? She was trying to keep men calm, pointing toward the safe exit, even as the smoke rose around her. Brave or insane, I ran toward her. Get down! I shouted. Her head snapped to me, eyes blazing through the smoke. Not until everyone's clear. This isn't a choice. I coughed hard, grabbing the railing and climbing up. Heat licked at my skin, flames crackling closer. Go back, she snapped. You have a daughter. Exactly why I'm not leaving you here. Her jaw clenched, but she faltered just long enough for me to reach her. I grabbed her arm. The metal railing burned hot against my palm. Come on now. I dragged her down, coughing, half-blinded. A beam cracked overhead, showering sparks. She stumbled. I threw myself between her and the falling wood, pain slamming into my shoulder. Damn it! I gritted, forcing us forward. When we finally reached the ground, the air outside was chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance. My lungs burned, vision blurry. She was shaking, covered in ash, but alive. You idiot, she rasped, grabbing my shirt. You could have died. I coughed, choking. So could you. Her eyes glistened, not with smoke, with something else. Why? Why would you risk that for me? I wiped soot from my face, swallowing hard. Because nobody deserves to burn alone. Her lips parted, but no words came. For a heartbeat, the world fell silent, just her trembling fingers gripping my arm like she didn't want to let go. At the hospital, they checked us both. Minor burns, smoke inhalation, nothing fatal. But when the nurse left us alone, she finally broke. You should hate me, she whispered. I've been cruel, cold, to you, to everyone. I leaned back, throat raw. I don't hate you. I just don't want my daughter growing up without me. And I don't want you disappearing behind smoke either. Her eyes softened, glassy. I don't know how to be anything else. Yes, you do, I said gently. You proved it. You stayed to protect your people. That wasn't a monster. That was human. She pressed her hand to her forehead, shaking. You don't understand. I built this armor for a reason. If I take it off, then maybe someone will finally see you. I interrupted. Her gaze locked on mine, sharp but vulnerable. For a long moment, she just stared, like no one had ever dared talk to her this way. Hours later, when they released us, she insisted on walking me to my truck. You should go home, I told her. She hesitated, then said quietly, Can I see her? Your daughter? Just to know she's okay. I blinked, surprised. Why? She looked away. Because she reminds me there's still light in the world. And because you risked your life today, and I can't pretend it didn't matter. Her voice cracked on the last word. I studied her face under the streetlight. Ash still clung to her hair, her eyes rimmed red from smoke. But she looked more real than I'd ever seen her. Not the billionaire, not the boss. Just a woman, haunted but fighting. Come on then, I said softly. Let's go home. When we walked in, my daughter ran straight to me, wrapping her arms around my legs. Daddy, you're safe. I scooped her up, wincing at the pull in my shoulder. Always, Pumpkin. Then she spotted the CEO standing awkwardly in the doorway. Miss Bossy, she squealed again. The CEO froze. Then, to my shock, she knelt down, meeting my daughter's eyes. Not bossy, she whispered. Just broken. My daughter tilted her head, then smiled. That's okay. Daddy fixes everything. And somehow, I swear I saw tears fall down the billionaire's ash-streaked cheeks. That night, after I tucked my girl in, I found her still sitting at the table, staring at her hands. "You saved me," she said quietly. "We saved each other," I replied. When she finally looked up, the firelight from our old lamp flickered in her eyes. And for the first time, I realized I was no longer just carrying the weight of my world. I was carrying hers too. The fire was only 2 days ago, but the whole town already knew. People talked, loudly, carelessly, about how their billionaire CEO had nearly burned alive and how a nobody construction worker had pulled her out. That nobody was me, and suddenly, everywhere I went, I felt the stares. At the market, at the school gate, at the job site. Whispers chased me like shadows. Why would she be with him? Probably using him for something. Poor kid, growing up in the middle of this mess. I tried to ignore them, but words cut deeper than steel. That evening, she came by again. No storm, no fire, just her, standing at my door with a bag of groceries. "You didn't have to," I started. "I wanted to," she said quickly, stepping inside. "You've carried enough. Let me carry something." My daughter squealed at the sight of cookies in the bag. "Daddy, look, real chocolate chips." I laughed softly. Guess we're spoiled now. The CEO gave me a small, almost shy smile. Maybe it's time you both were. Over dinner, she kept sneaking glances at my girl, helping her cut food, listening to her endless chatter about school drawings. I watched quietly, a strange warmth in my chest. After we tucked my daughter in, she lingered at the table. "You know people are talking," she said finally. I sighed. "Yeah, I hear it everywhere." Her jaw tightened. "They think I'm using you, or you're using me. They can't understand something that doesn't fit their gossip." "Let them talk," I muttered, though it burned inside. She leaned closer, her eyes sharp. "Does it bother you, what they say?" I swallowed. "It bothers me when my daughter might hear it." She went quiet, looking down at her hands. "I know what it's like, growing up hearing things no child should. I don't want her to carry that weight." The room felt heavy. Finally, I asked, "Why you keep coming here?" "Really?" Her eyes lifted to mine, steady. "Because for the first time in years, I feel human. With you, with her." My throat tightened. "And if the world doesn't understand?" Her lips curved bitterly. "The world never understood me anyway." The next day at the site, the whispers were louder. Some men smirked, nudging each other when I walked past. "Careful, hero," one called. "Might get burned twice." I clenched my fists, forcing myself to walk away. But by lunch, I'd had enough. "You got something to say?" I snapped at one of them. He sneered. "Yeah, men like you don't belong with women like her." Before I could swing, her voice cut through the noise. "Enough." Everyone froze. She stood there, flawless in her suit, but her eyes blazed fire. "This man risked his life for me. He's worth more than all your paychecks combined. If anyone has a problem with him, you answer to me." Silence. Then she turned to me, voice softer. "Let's go." Outside, I muttered, "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Her gaze was fierce. "You've been protecting me. Let me protect you, too." For a moment, I just stared at her. This woman who had built walls higher than skyscrapers was tearing them down, one piece at a time. And she was choosing to stand with me, no matter the cost. That night, back at home, my daughter climbed into her lap again. "Do people say mean things about you, too?" she asked innocently. The CEO hesitated, then nodded. "All the time." "And do you care?" She smiled faintly. "Not when I'm with you, too." My daughter hugged her tightly. Then, "Don't care." I swallowed hard, watching the scene, because in that moment, I realized something dangerous. We weren't just surviving together anymore. We were starting to feel like a family. The whispers didn't stop. They grew. By the end of the week, the whole town had an opinion about us. Some sneered. Some looked at me like I'd won the lottery, and others treated me like dirt. I could handle that. What I couldn't handle was the way she looked the morning she showed up at my door. Her usual steel replaced by something I hadn't seen before. Fear. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. My daughter tugged her inside with a grin. "Cookies again?" She managed a weak smile. Not tonight, sweetheart. When my girl went to her room, the CEO sank into a chair like the world had finally crushed her. What happened? I asked. She stared at the floor. The board. They called a meeting. They want me out. My chest tightened. Out? You built that company. Her laugh was bitter. And now they want to tear me down. They said I'd become distracted, weak. Her eyes flicked up to mine. Because of you. The words sliced deep. I sat across from her, fists clenched. So what? They're punishing you for being human? They think I've lost my edge, she whispered. They're right about one thing. I don't feel the same as before, and it terrifies them. Does it terrify you? I asked. She held my gaze, and for the first time, she didn't have an answer. The next day, she invited me to the company headquarters. You should see it for yourself, she said. Walking into that glass fortress felt like stepping into another world. Polished floors, men in suits glaring at me like I didn't belong. Maybe I didn't, but when I saw her striding ahead, shoulders squared, I realized she belonged more than anyone. The boardroom was cold, all steel and sharp voices. One man sneered. We warned you. You've compromised your position. You're fraternizing with an employee, and it's damaging the company image. My jaw tightened. Before I could speak, she snapped. This man saved my life. He's more loyal and honorable than anyone in this room. If you can't respect that, then maybe I don't need to sit at this table. Gasps, murmurs. The chairman's voice was icy. Careful. That sounded like a resignation. On the drive back, silence stretched between us. Finally, she whispered, I could lose everything. I gripped the wheel, anger boiling. Then let me fight with you. Her head snapped to me. This isn't your war. Yes, it is, I said firmly, because they're not just attacking you. They're attacking the part of you that finally dare to care. And I won't let them take that away. Her eyes softened, but she shook her head. You don't understand what it costs to stand beside me. I glanced at her, heart pounding. Then, teach me. That night, after I put my daughter to bed, we sat in the kitchen. She looked around our small apartment, the peeling paint, the flickering light bulb, and whispered, You could have more, you know. With me, money, security, a different life. I shook my head. I don't want your money. I want you. Her lips parted, trembling. Even if I fall, I leaned closer. Then I'll fall with you. For the first time, her hand reached across the table, brushing mine. Not as a CEO, not as a boss, just as a woman who was finally letting someone in. The next day, she walked into the office with me by her side. Whispers filled the hall. But when she entered the boardroom, she didn't flinch. If you want to strip me of my position, she said coldly, you'll have to explain to every shareholder why you're replacing the only person willing to risk her life for her people. The room went silent. No one dared challenge her. Not after the fire. Not with me standing at her side. When the meeting ended, she walked out taller, her grip on my hand tight. That night, back home, she sat with my daughter again. They drew hearts on paper, laughing softly. I leaned against the doorway, watching them. My daughter's world had always been small, just me, her, and survival. But now there was someone else in it. Someone who carried shadows, but was learning to share light. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, we weren't broken pieces anymore. Maybe we were becoming something whole. The board didn't fire her that day, but the battle was far from over. She told me they were circling, waiting for one mistake. And in a town this small, mistakes had a way of growing wings. I wanted to protect her, but I didn't know how. One night, as we sat at the table after putting my daughter to bed, she broke the silence. They're going after you now, she whispered. I frowned. Me? She nodded. The board hired investigators, digging into your life, your debts, your past, anything they can use to prove you're unfit to be near me. My chest tightened. Unfit? I'm just a father trying to raise his little girl. Her eyes shimmered. And that's why it kills me. They'll twist your love into weakness. And I won't let them. The next morning, I found an envelope slipped under my door. Inside were photos, me and her, me and my daughter, even shots of our home. Someone was watching us. Anger surged hot in my veins. When I showed her, her hands trembled as she held the pictures. "They won't stop," she whispered. "Not until they destroy one of us." I clenched my fists, then let them come. I won't let them touch my daughter. Her gaze lifted, fierce but breaking. "That's why I have to do this." "Do what?" "Step away. From you. From her. From this." The words hit like a blade. "No." Her lips quivered. "If it keeps you safe." "Don't you dare." I cut in, voice shaking. "Don't you dare protect me by breaking me." For days, she kept her distance. At the sight, she was cold again, distant, back behind her walls. My daughter asked where Miss Bossy had gone, and I had no answer. But one evening, she appeared at my door with eyes swollen from crying. "I can't stay away," she whispered. Before I could answer, she pressed a folded document into my hand. "What's this?" "My resignation." The words stole my breath. "You what?" Her voice cracked. "I gave up the company. The board wanted a clean image, so I gave it to them. They'll leave you alone now." I stared at her, stunned. "You walked away from everything." She shook her head. "Not everything. I kept the only thing that matters." Her eyes found mine. "You, her, us." I didn't know whether to shout or to hold her. My heart pounded with fear, and all at once. "You didn't have to do this," I rasped. "Yes, I did," she said firmly. "Because love isn't about holding on to power. It's about giving it up when it means saving the people you can't lose." Tears blurred my vision. I pulled her into my arms, holding her as tightly as I dared. She trembled against me, but she didn't let go. Later, as we sat on the couch, my daughter climbed into her lap, unaware of the storm we'd just survived. "Why are you sad?" my little girl asked softly. The CEO smiled weakly. "I lost something today." My daughter hugged her. "It's okay. You still have us." Her tears finally fell, but she smiled through them. And in that moment, I realized she hadn't lost it all. She had chosen love. And maybe, for the first time, she was free. That night, after my daughter was asleep, I whispered, "You gave up everything for us. I don't know how to repay that." She shook her head, resting her hand over mine. "Just don't let me run again. That's all I want." I kissed her forehead, voice breaking. "Then stay. Stay with us. For good." She closed her eyes, whispering back, "For good." The weeks after her resignation were quieter. Almost too quiet. The newspapers moved on to another scandal. The town stopped whispering so loudly, and for the first time in years, I felt like life might actually breathe again. But she was different. Without the weight of the company. She moved slower. She laughed more. She cooked once, burned half the meal, cursed like a sailor, and then laughed until tears streamed down her face. My daughter thought it was the funniest night ever. Sometimes I caught her staring at us, like she still couldn't believe she was part of our little world. One evening, as I tucked my daughter in, she asked, "Daddy, is she staying forever?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask, Pumpkin?" She shrugged. "Because I want her to be my family, too." My chest tightened. I kissed her forehead. "We'll see, sweetheart." But later, sitting at the kitchen table, her words kept echoing. That night, I found the CEO sitting on the balcony, wrapped in one of my old blankets. The city lights glowed below us, and for once, she didn't look untouchable. She looked at peace. "You ever think about the future?" I asked quietly, sitting beside her. She smirked. "The future used to be all I thought about. Quarterly reports, expansion plans, profits. But now," she glanced at me, "now I think about little things. Like what story she'll want tomorrow. Or if you'll ever fix that broken light in the kitchen." I chuckled. "That light's been broken so long, it's practically part of the family." Her smile softened. "See? That's what I want. A future that isn't made of numbers, but of moments. The next morning, she surprised me. "Come on," she said, tugging me out of the apartment. "Where are we going?" "You'll see." We ended up outside a small, worn-down house on the edge of town. Paint peeling, roof sagging a little, but it had a yard, a tree, space to breathe. She held out a key. "I bought it," she said quietly. My jaw dropped. "You what?" "For us," she added quickly, almost nervously. "For her, for you, for whatever we are." I stared at the house, then at her. "You gave up a kingdom, and now you're building a home?" Her eyes glistened. A kingdom was empty. A home, that's everything. We moved in a week later. My daughter ran to the yard like she'd found paradise, her laughter echoing across the fence. I carried boxes while the CEO struggled with curtains, swearing under her breath until my girl showed her how to knot the ties. At night, we sat on the porch, the air smelling of grass instead of concrete dust. "This feels unreal," I murmured. She leaned against me. Then maybe real was overrated. But it wasn't all easy. The board tried one last time to drag her back, dangling money and power like bait. She almost wavered. I could see it in her eyes. "Don't you miss it?" I asked one night. She hesitated. "I miss the fight, but I don't miss being alone." I touched her hand. "Then don't be." The turning point came when my daughter fell sick, just a fever, but it scared me. I sat by her bed, holding her tiny hand, praying. At some point, I felt another hand cover mine. I looked up and saw her, eyes full of fear, just like mine. She didn't move the whole night. She just sat there, keeping watch with me. When the fever finally broke, she broke too. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, "I thought I'd lost her. I can't lose either of you." I pulled her into my arms. "You won't. Not anymore." Weeks turned into months. The gossip faded. The pain of the past loosened its grip. And slowly, we stitched together a life, messy, fragile, but real. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, my daughter stood between us in the yard, holding both our hands. "Daddy," she said, "can we be a family now?" The CEO's breath hitched. My throat closed. I knelt down, pulling them both close. "Pumpkin, we already are." The CEO whispered, voice trembling, "For good." "For good," I promised. That night, as I lay in bed with him beside me, the woman who had once been a stranger, the child who was my world, I realized the truth. I had carried so much weight alone. But love doesn't take away the weight. It makes it lighter because you don't carry it alone anymore. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was home,